Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Power of Eight. We are utilizing this book, The Power of Eight by Lynne McTaggart. So if you'd like to grab a copy of that and follow along with us, we'll be here every Wednesday at 5 p.m. We're using the book as the basis of our conversation. We do invite anyone to join us. If you'd like to join us here, we can send you a link, or if you'd like to leave comments, please do, and we'll answer those as we are here live. We encourage healers who maybe who have had the experience of healing others. We encourage people who have enjoyed the energy healing, and also people have questions and want to know more about energy healing. Please engage with us, and we will answer those questions for you. So today, I'm your co-host Jennifer Smith, along with Pollyanna Blanco, and today we are covering Chapter 3 of the book, which is Virtual Entanglement. So why don't we get started there? Pollyanna, would you like to kind of give your definition of what you think virtual entanglement means to you?
Okay, well, I know this is a term that can be something very complex, right? So we were talking about that just before the show, and you can kind of go down a rabbit hole trying to explain it and understand it. I like to keep things really simple, and I'm going to start off with one word. Everything's interconnected. And this is beyond all the sort of perceived limitations that we have. And some of you may have heard the term by Einstein's spooky action at a distance. And this idea that even though we live in what feels like a material 3D reality where things are, you can touch them, you can feel them, you can see them. Originally, I think my understanding so far of entanglement is that at the level, a certain molecular level, like at the level of the electron, according to what it says in this book too, it's this idea that I'm stumbling over my words here a little bit because I'm not a science background person, but basically different particles electrons can impact each other regardless of the time-space continuum. So they've done experiments like they talk about in this chapter where you have, the power of people's thoughts being able to affect seeds, in this case, barley seeds, over distance. And so the thoughts and the intentions, even if the people are thousands of miles away in different countries, that there have been measurable results in experiments with the power of thought over time, space, and distance on different items. And from what it talked about, which was really interesting, is this is widely accepted right now in scientific communities, right? And then as it moves to the more lower than the particles that are smaller particles than electrons, then it becomes a little bit less tested, I guess is the word. And then as it moves into the more solidified, larger objects that the electrons make up, it becomes kind of relegated to this spooky action at a distance terminology that Einstein gave it. That's my quasi-scientific explanation, but in a nutshell, what I know to be true from my own experiences, and this is what I want to ask you, Jennifer, because I know you've had experiences, as I've had experiences, both on the healing table and off the healing table in life, just because we're open to this, that there is this, whether there's so many names for it, right? I think some people call it the ethers, or some people call it, the ethnosphere, or just plasma, or whatever. I don't know. There's so many different names for it. That invisible connectivity that connects all of us. And I believe it was the Mayans talk about the woven mat that we're all on. And so this idea that we are not separate, even though in 3D reality we appear to be separate entities and beings and objects, that there's still this consciousness within us that is what connects us across time and space. So there you go.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, and I, I was thinking about the name of the chapter before we got on, and then I went and looked at like quantum entanglement, like, and there's so you can go so deep in the science of this. There's all sorts of formulas out there, which I used to all the formulas and all the sciencey stuff sparks my interest too. But I would say that just through experience, it's true. And what do people call it? I like to look at it as, source energy. It's that's what it is. That's how we're all connected through one source. And people call that many things, right? They source energy, whatever this divine power is that you want to call it. That is that's what this is all about. And from the healing perspective, I know it's true because I send distant healing um, all the time to people who request it. So that's part of my service to the world. And I work with people. I mean, I can send healing to Australia, to Canada, anywhere on the planet. Healers are able to send distant healing, and the energy works, uh, and the healing happens. So um, it's real. I don't have a formula for that, but it's just their experience, and that's how it works. And they were trying to do scientific experiments here on plants because everything living can accept the energy, plants, animals, people. And there were some studies on people and how it affected them. And there were two that I had down here. One was the spontaneous remission of cancer that happened during these healing intentions. And the other one was a client by the name of Brian who was paralyzed on his left side and was unconscious. And after the healing intentions, he started to gain his consciousness. And then 2 days later, he went to physical therapy and walked 60 feet. So these are what they're calling miracles. And I think in the book, as she said, a miracle, amazement, divine, against all expectations. So these are the type of things that are available to people and things that we can do to help with healing.
Yes, and I'm so glad you shared those examples because I think when people hear those kinds of hear about those kinds of experiences and results, that it really kind of highlights that we have, first of all, it has a wow factor, and then second of all, it highlights that we have these expectations, these limiting beliefs about what could be possible. And I think really a miracle is about opening up to all possibilities outside of all limitations. And that, I always go back to that Course in Miracles that I read years and years ago, like 20 years ago, that, miracles as natural as breathing, right? We treat a miracle as something that is an anomaly, something that is extra special. And yet imagine if we can even flip that around and lived our life as though, miracles around us all the time. It's just, are we noticing them? And I feel that shift in perspective is really about a different way of seeing and then therefore experiencing the world. And then there's a ripple effect from that too. And, it's interesting because it's consciousness itself that's healing. I remember I first learned that from Sri Ram Ka, studying medical intuition with him. And that had a profound effect. And it took me a little while to kind of really let that sort of sort and settle itself and kind of go from just an intellectual concept into what does that actually mean for humanity, mean for us, in the healing journey. And I also think too that when we hear about these cases where people had a sudden, remission from cancer or something too, I don't know why I feel guided to speak to it because I feel like someone out there is, I don't know, I'm just feeling this energy right now. Maybe it's someone who's watching right now or someone who's going to be watching on the replay. I'm just getting this spidey sense about it, might be confusing our messaging with control. Like you know how that can kind of come in, like, I intend for my cancer to be gone, so therefore I'm controlling it somehow, or wishing it to be gone for someone else. And I just, sorry, I don't know if this is making any sense, but I feel kind of, if you don't mind me, I want to unpack it just a little bit, because the when we send a healing intention, you said it earlier, Jennifer, there's no attachment to a specific expectation or outcome. That's why it can defy all of them, because that's kind of a paradox, right? Like, we set an intention which sounds like we have an expectation, but an intention is different than an expectation. And I think there's a discernment there for the viewers. What do you think?
Yeah. So let me just kind of go through how I do healings for people.
Yeah.
And before we even start the healing, I asked the client, the person that's there to see me, what is their intention for the healing? What is it that they want to get from the healing? And then we base the healing off of that. I think clarifying what that intention is, and then visualizing yourself as if that's already done, right? Because I think visualization is very important, and you want to get in that positive energy as if, yes, it's already done. And then as a healer, I amplify their intention of why they came. Now, sometimes there's deeper parts that need to be healed that may be unconscious, that people may not recognize. So the only thing that I add on top of that is their intention, and then the highest healing for their highest good. And that's the intentions that healer said. I've taught many people how to heal, and that's how I teach people whenever they're in the healing room as well. Those positive intentions, and then we just send love and light, and we clear our mind, get ourselves out of the way, allow that source energy to flow through a pure channel, so the healing can take place.
I love that. And I almost feel like I just want to go back and just like bullet point that for everyone. Like, so it's the teacher in me, right? Because what you said was those were such excellent examples of that discernment between, what's the difference between an intention and an expectation. And first of all, number one bullet point is that you invite the person coming to you for healing to be participatory. This is not something that's being done to them by you. Okay. So, because we talked about this in the last show, it's about being that clear channel and getting out of the way so that the highest good can move through us and we can serve. And then the second bullet point that I just kind of feel guided to kind of reemphasize that you shared so beautifully is that you, not only do they set the healing intention, it's that it's not only the readiness, it's the clarity of what it is that they are calling forward in their own life. And then the third part is that adding in just that you're holding space for them for the highest healing, for their highest good. So when we unpack that discernment between an expectation and an intention is like a container that holds the frequency and the energy for all possibilities. Whereas an expectation is kind of pinning it down to an outcome that we're trying to control, and we're going to measure our results and our success on whether or not it was successful, right? Whereas the success is already built in with an intention that, because you're holding the intention in the first place and claiming that it's even a possibility in and of itself, that the highest good is available right now, the highest healing, the highest good is available right now, to amplify the energy of what the person that you're working on is setting. Like, maybe it's to ease some sort of suffering, some sort of physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. Because again, it's also, and the other part I sort of feel kind of I'm speaking sort of intuitively here, guided to add on to that, is that, say, for example, someone holds the intention of, wanting, I'm going to be really clunky here, their cancer to go into remission. and it doesn't happen at the end of the very first session on the healing table, that doesn't mean that it A, won't happen, and B, even has to happen. It's what is happening is there's a process, an unfurling, an unfolding, an unwinding of the tightness of the pain and the suffering and the energies around whatever brought the person to the healing space in the first place. It's the loosening up of all the layers around it. And I feel like that's when miracles can start to emerge and be noticeable, because it is a process. Sometimes it is like a lightning bolt and it happens like spontaneously, because it was just that one tweak in perception that just unravels everything in a good way, and boom, it's, no longer, tied up like a knot. And other times it's a more slow and gradual process. The miracle is that you've engaged with the process, because prior to that, whatever you were experiencing in your human experience led up to this now moment. So the fact that you're willing to acknowledge that and ask for a different possibility is also a miracle in itself, because prior to that moment, it wasn't even on the radar screen, or it was I'll do it one day, or maybe next week, or maybe next month, or maybe that's not even possible. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think people have different intentions. Some people come in for physical healing. Some people have emotional healing. Some people come in for, they just want clarity. Some people come in for more spiritual healing. But I think it's important, like whenever I do the intentions, we always do it in a positive outlook. Like we're not curing anything or taking anything away. It's, I want to physically be in a healthy, vibrant body, and physically, in that way. So, yeah, I think that's good. That's good.
Yeah, and I notice that too when I'm working with clients. It's really holding the space for them to return to an awareness of their wholeness.
Yeah.
And that whatever has been whatever they've been experiencing is divinely offering them the gift of insight, of clarity, like you said, of just, it's loving. I sort of, the way I describe it is loving all those aspects of self back into the light of your awareness. And then just, and even if we're not aware, like you were talking about before, shifts can happen even under the radar screen. Like all of a sudden, physically, our body just feels safe, and then the energy is able to relax, move, and shift, even if we're not cognitively aware of it too. So like the beautiful thing about healing is that when you have those high intentions and you hold that positive outcome through the intention, it's a discovery process for both the person facilitating the healing experience and the person receiving it. And the beautiful thing is both people heal and expand through it. So it's very, when done from sincerity, love, and presence, and there's and the healer is setting the intention and has done their inner work and inner healing to be a clear channel. The beautiful thing is there's this restoration of harmony, of creative flow back and forth, which is also sort of like a little microcosm of the macrocosm, if you will. It's like it's a taste of what it's like to be back in unity consciousness, to be back in the sense of, even though there's you and there's me, I am another you and you are another me. And because there is on the sort of the larger sort of global sense, the cosmic sense of that we are that life force energy, that is circulating throughout the universe, it's circulating through us. And so we're channeling or allowing that energy to flow through us, whether it's Reiki or something else that the client has agreed to. And then they're able to, it's almost like, I think what helps in the healing process is like a remembering on an energetic level that we're so much more than who we think we are. That
Mm-hmm.
kind of just, it restores something. It restores that sense of, this is who I really am underneath all the noise, all the maybe struggle or difficulties or suffering or pain or confusion. And you can kind of reconnect with that essential you, that essence of who you are, your soul, your spirit, and feel safe in your body, in that moment.
Yeah, you'd mentioned something about Reiki, and there's Reiki and quantum healing.
Yes. And
And
I'm glad you brought that up, because there is a
yeah,
difference, isn't there?
what what was that,
There,
Pollyanna?
there is a bit of a difference.
There
Um,
is.
yeah.
You can feel the difference because being so in tune with energy, you can feel the difference. And I think people want to know, like, what is that? What is the difference? And I'll give my explanation, and I would love to hear yours, like the simple explanation of it. But Reiki feels like to me, a very gentle energy all over the body, and the quantum energy is more of a Reiki with consciousness. So I feel like that is, to me, how I explain the
Hmm.
difference between Reiki and quantum. How would you explain it?
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way before. And I like how you just expressed it, because both are beautiful healing modalities. And I'm not adding into the conversation that one is better than the other, because I think that would be inappropriate and just false.
Mhm.
I want to just be really kind of clunky and come out and say that directly. What I what I what I have noticed through working with Reiki myself is, I started learning some Hara Reiki, which was different than it was based on Yusui Reiki, and it was an interesting sort of extension of what I had originally learned the first time around when I studied Reiki. Uh, when I first learned Reiki, and I worked on myself and I worked on people, it is that, with that sense of very calming, soothing. It definitely helps downregulate the nervous system, which is
Mhm.
so essential in healing. And it's very gentle and beautiful. And when I started many years later studying Samhara Reiki, because it worked with transmissions, which are inspired guidance and messages that come through, sometimes in the form of literally messages and other times just through sounding to move energy, as well as using sound healing instruments to move energy. That was similar, and in the sense it was very gentle, and at the same time, because it involved a little more dialoguing with the receiver on the healing table, that there could be room for a little bit more conscious awareness. However, the main focus, again, with it being Reiki based, was the relaxation, and so that the energy could be restored to flow, and the blocks could be, dissolved and released. Quantum healing, as I understand it, is sort of what I started to experience studying medical intuition with Shri.
Mhm.
And it's this more of it, it's very different from Reiki in the sense that it's a different process, right? It's a receptive process, just like Reiki. There's an energy to it, just like there is with Reiki, an energy exchange. And at the same time, it's more in my experience, in the way I work with medical intuition, is after I've had permission to do the scan on the person, um, there are certain guided prompts and questions I ask my client to I guess the word I want to say is activate an awareness in them of what's emerging that wants to be seen. So sort of bringing it up to the surface, and then in addition to that, working with maybe some evasive balancing or chakra work or other modalities that I have to begin to shift the energy. And it's both are very much participatory processes. And at the same time, I just feel like it's an energetic, maybe this is how I'm feeling guided to say it. I've never said it this way before, but an energetic form of talk therapy as opposed to an energetic massage. And that's, I guess it's a bit clunky. That's just what's kind of coming through right now, that the client's actually lying on the table for the Reiki, whereas the way I understand and kind of use quantum healing myself, it's more from that medical, intuitive connecting with your body. And there might be guided visualizations where they can go inwards as to help them with their own inner healing journey and process, and supporting it and facilitating it. So there's more different aspects to it, but they're not necessarily per se lying on the table. So yeah.
Yeah, I would love to have people on the show to talk about their experiences and what they do. So the evasive balancing is part of the quantum healing that I do. That's what I would consider the quantum healing and in the energy there. But yeah, so that's interesting. That's good.
And since you mentioned it also too, because with the evasive balancing, of course, we can do it over distance, and we can work on a figure, a drawn figure, just a generic drawn figure, and do a scan and everything, and then do the actual balancing, as well as leading someone who's with us in person, or even over distance, through a guided visualization experience. What I also feel quantum healing gets into too is different timelines and working multidimensionally.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I feel like with Reiki, you can't really separate these things in all truth, because everything is multidimensional. and
Yeah.
it's just that the approach, I would say, the approach is I might very directly do timeline therapy with a client, where we go to certain or points in their timeline. We might also go back and do some revision therapy, where we go back to a moment in the past where healing, there's some stuck energy, and rewrite the past to have a different present to inform a possible new future, and to shift the energy. So
yeah, I think that they both work in conjunction, and actually that's how I do the healing. I use both Reiki and quantum, and it's interesting to see, and it's really the person too that are they receptive to the energies, right? Because we have the frequencies that we can offer. What are they willing to accept? And they have the wisdom to know what they need at that time. So it's a wonderful healing modality.
it totally is. And that's the thing too. I mean, we combine. I find when you've been doing energy healing for a while, you start to kind of take different aspects from different modalities that you've been trained in, that are in your toolkit. And at least this is what I do. I hear a lot of healers doing this, where you kind of mix and match a little bit, because again, it's what intuitively you feel guided to, bring forward to support the client, and they will know too what they're drawn to, as you just shared. So it's again, I feel like all of these are sort of very, very beautiful and empowering, divinely empowering tools in our toolkit. And at the same time, the most important aspect of any one of these processes that we make available for our clients to use in their healing journey and experience is the consciousness itself, and the capacity to hold that intention in that space, just kind of coming back to that intention. So one of the things I've learned in my own journey is to honor the tools and treat them as sacred, and at the same time to find that inner balance between being respectful and honoring of the tools that I've been taught, and treating them as sacred, and practicing them and using them on myself, in addition, like doing my own inner work to be in integrity, alignment, and sincerity. so that when I do have the opportunity to hold space for a client, it comes from a space of alignment, while also recognizing that the consciousness itself, like not getting so bogged down in the tools that and the procedures that I'm doing it from a heady place. That's a no. That's a game. That's a no. It's, so it's like trusting that, just trusting. It's really trusting that the power of the intention is the key, right? When you're setting the intention for the highest good and the highest healing, then there is a surrendering where you, at least I know it, just know that all is well, so that all can truly be well for the person in their experience too.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I love the discussion about Reiki and quantum and energy healing. Was there anything else we wanted to talk about with the book?
Yeah, the time's really flying by, and I know this is a topic that's so near and dear to both of our hearts. Well, there's one thing that I feel like I do want to share. It was, I think, right here. It was just kind of a nice sort of summary of what we've been talking about. And it was where it was said that we'd repeatedly demonstrated that the human mind has the ability to move beyond time and space, connect with other minds, and act on matter at a distance. Essentially, we demonstrated through the experiments something extraordinary and profound, that human minds have the capacity to operate non-locally. And so, this is the beautiful thing about us as human beings, is that we have the capacity to really send positive intentions to the world, positive intentions into even to our future selves, positive intentions to our past selves, just to understand that the limitations of time and space are just that, limitations, that there's something that is larger than what meets the eye. And in that recognition and remembrance and claiming that for ourselves, that's when we really open ourselves up to the miraculous.
Yeah. Not only do we have our mind is so powerful, we have the ability to heal at a distance. We have so many abilities. We have the ability to bilocate. We have the ability to do so many things, so many extraordinary things. And that's what I love about where we're at today.
Yeah. And I feel it's like where human beings are going too, because we're going to continue to have human bodies, and the key, at least as I understand it and experience it, the key is to really anchor that ascended awareness in our physical form, right? To really bring heaven to earth, to embody it, to ground it. It's not someplace we go to after we leave this lifetime or some, but to really bring it, because then the energy of that, just our presence itself is healing. We don't actually have to even do anything. It's just, there's that basic law and science of entrainment. Like, there's even that saying, I think, I forget where it comes from, heal or heal thyself. Because at the end of the day, and you said this to me, I think it was maybe when we were chatting after last week's episode, that we really only have one job and one job only. And it was just so wise to stay in the highest possible vibrational frequency and live with a heart full of gratitude. And really, I mean, you think about, a lot of the stuff we've been taught, we have to work hard. It's complicated. It takes years, it could, and it might. And there's no judgment in that, because that's still just another experience to learn and grow through and from. And at the same time, what accounts for those spontaneous healings? What accounts for, well, maybe it's just saying, hey, allowing it to be simple, allowing it even to be fun, allowing it to be all the things we've been taught it can't be, and just embracing, even if it's just on a whim, just dancing with that for a moment or two and noticing how good that feels, and then choosing that.
Yeah. Our jobs are really easy, and it can be really fun. And it's just being able to um, be an open channel for source. And how do we do that? All the things that we've been taught. We trust, we allow, we don't worry, we don't doubt. We have a positive mindset, because then we attract positive things. And life is really much more simple than what we have been led to believe.
Yes. And there's one other thing I feel kind of guided to share too. And it's, I was having a conversation today with another dear friend of mine, and we're talking about energy healing. And it's outside of like the healing space, like as working it with energy work or being a healing facilitator, just in our day-to-day lives, right? And that goes back to the presence piece. I feel like it's important to be said, like, this is what I've come to realize along the way on my own journey. And that's that, because I don't like to see people suffering or struggling, and I always want to help people. But what I've had to learn along the way is, and I say but intentionally rather than and, normally I say and, but it was sort of like I bumped up against my own edges around this, is that at the end of the day, if someone, I have to be really clear that outside of the healing space where someone's asked permission to do healing, the most healing thing I can do for other people is to really do my own inner healing work, like we were just saying, and to not try to fix, heal, or rescue, because that goes into all kinds of other areas. And also too,
Mhm.
when moments pop up in our daily lives, which today even I had a experience where I was, I had this awareness of my emotional body getting a little, ruffled up, and I, now, as a practice I have, is I notice it, I don't suppress it, and at the same time, because I'm aware of myself noticing it, and it's not that the emotions were not raw and real, and I did want to cry, and then there was a part of me that didn't want to cry, because it was the part of me that was witnessing it that just said, you don't have to go back into it again. You don't have to get hooked back into it again. And
Mhm.
I feel like this is an important practice as we're evolving. Uh, each and every single one of us, is there's this evolution that's birthing through all of us, that's emerging through us, both, in our own personal experiences, and then collectively as we do this together. It's more, I know I'm not alone in this. Other people like yourself are experiencing this too, and we're talking about it more. Is this lifting out of, it's not bypassing, it's not spiritual bypassing, but it's lifting out of the old patterns of struggling and sort of getting stuck in repeating painful patterns. And
Mhm.
it's the healing that happens is just through holding space for ourselves and loving those parts, and yet not fully getting pulled back into the mosh pit, as I call it, and hooked back into whatever emotions or thoughts might be coming up. Just noticing that, ooh, this doesn't feel good. And then asking, why is this coming up? What am I being called forward to learn in this moment? And that, in that second, in that moment, when you can create just a little bit of spaciousness inside, that's when I find it's like the wobbles are there, and yet that spaciousness allows for the new possibilities to emerge of, you know, and because I
Yeah.
literally feel the difference between that old part of me that's and then the part of me that's witnessing, that's going, holding neutrality. And it's like, okay, so now I can see the contrast between the witness and the experiencer of this moment. And it's like, what am I going to choose? It's like a choose your own adventure. Like, do I want more of the suffering, or do I want instead to just see that it's coming up so I can thank it, bless it, release it, and then open to new energies.
Yeah, I like that. And this is just another way of saying what you've described. I talk to people about we have this perfect spiritual DNA within us. And our emotions will allow us to know when we have deviated off of that, from that spiritual DNA, that perfection within us. And so it's not a bad thing to have emotions. We're going to, but it's an indicator to let us know, oh, you need to get back into alignment, because we know who you are. You know who you are. And so that's kind of how I look at it, emotions. And it's all about awareness. Everything's about awareness. Are you aware of these emotions? And can you utilize the tools to pull you back into alignment? Because that's whenever the energy's flowing, that's when abundance, that's when healing happens, that's when manifestation happens, that's when everything happens. But it's really those subtle, being able to be aware of that. And it takes practice, right? The more you practice it, the more you're aware of it. So yeah.
I love that. Beautifully said.
Yeah. So there was one more thing I would like to say from the book. It's the very last paragraph, and I thought this was great, so I'm going to read it straight from there. She said, I began to ponder the possibility that human consciousness possesses the ability to create a sort of psychic internet, allowing us to be in touch with everything at every moment. All we might require is focused attention to log on to it. And I think that's perfectly worded.
Yes, she hit the nail on the head with that one. I love the psychic internet.
Yeah.
And what a great way to sum everything up. I mean, really, that's what it is. We've created this outer internet form as a mirror of what we already have inside of us, like what Greg Braden talks about, all the inner technology inside of us. And we're just sort of we're sort of rediscovering the instruction manual for that, and even remembering that we have it, and understanding that it's real. Like it's one of those again sort of paradoxes, that sometimes the things that feel and seem most real in one sense instead of in a 3D sense are because there's an underlying energetic to it, that's like almost like the scaffolding or the blueprint that's holding it in place. And so when we can recognize that, and we can realize that it's consciousness that's holding whatever we're experiencing in place, it's like the blueprint, then as we shift your consciousness, the blueprint changes, and what is created and built upon that blueprint changes. And so we can join forces, by linking arms and linking hearts and thoughts. And this is foundational. This isn't fluffy bunny. This is foundational. And you just have to look at any so-called concrete plan in any place that people are sitting around a table discussing or debating, what are our next steps. And if you peel back the layers of, the tone of voice, the words that are being used, that are being chosen, the pictures, everything, and just boil it down to its essence, what consciousness is operating underneath all of this, then if something is, let's say, kind of not, you just get a lot of information. What I'm just trying to say, I guess, is you just get a lot is revealed. And so I feel like as human beings, as we awaken to that and we're open to that and curious about that, I think the big word is curiosity, and just there's no judgment in it. It's more information to play with and to create with and from. Then it's, again, that's just where new possibilities open up.
New
And
possibilities. I like the curiosity. I think the curiosity really helps people look into this. You know, the book that was written here, intellectually, we can take a look at it and study it. Then I think putting it into your daily practice is really whenever you're going to understand it and see the miracles.
yeah, I love that. You know, and it is about experiencing. It's about experiencing, right? You know, it's you know, it's one thing to intellectually understand it. It's another thing to know it, and it's another thing to experience it.
Yeah.
And it's the layers that, you know, it has to filter in through for
Mhm.
for all of us, right? You know, and so I've enjoyed this today.
Yes, I have too. So we will be back here next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you, Pollyanna, and I will see you next week.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's always so much fun to be here with you.